Good morning, dear students. Welcome to another session of microwave and antennas. So, in previous session, we obtained the equation for the maximum effective aperture of a short dipole, and before that, we discussed some of the aspects related to apertures, in which we saw what is meant by effective aperture, what is meant by loss aperture, collective aperture, so these and physical aperture. So these are the aspects what we discussed in the previous session. And in previous session, we obtained what is maximum effective aperture for the short dipole. And as we discussed, how do we identify a dipole to be short? If the length of the dipole, which is under consideration, if it is its length is very much lesser than the operating wavelength, that is whatever signal you are applying to this, so its wavelength, when you consider if the length of the dipole will be very much lesser than this lambda, then we consider it to be a short dipole. But in general, what we have is length is lesser equal to 0.05 times lambda. That is what we consider as a short dipole. In continuation with this, we'll move ahead and just check out what is the maximum effective aperture of lambda by 2 dipole. So for identifying this, we had utilized this equation, which is maximum effective aperture is equal to square of the potential difference divided by 4p RR, where RR is the radiation resistance of the antenna and P is the power density. So yesterday, if you remember, we had in the previous session, we had seen that for a dipole of length L, which is placed along y-axis in this form, what is been shown over here, in which half of the length falls on the negative y-axis and the half of the length falls on the positive y-axis. Therefore, the ends will have the values of minus L by 2 and plus L by 2. And as we had seen that when antenna uh, is applied with the source, then what happens is electrons tend to flow. And if it's a sinusoidal wave, what happens is electrons tend to flow from one end to the other end, and from when the direction changes, these electrons move from the other end to the opposite end. So in this way, what happens is positive and negative charges will be accumulated at the either ends in either of the cycles, and due to which what happens is you can see a electric field. And when we observe the electric field, it will be sinusoidal in nature. So that is how this is represented. So entire this thing can be represented in this form. So and after this, what we did is in this case we have to identify what is the potential difference, that is V, which is along this dipole. And radiation resistance, we had seen what is the value for short dipole, and the p value in terms of electric and magnetic fields, in which we used the power density equal to cross product of E and H. And then we use the equation intrinsic impedance is equal to E by H. So based on that, we obtained the equation for the maximum effective aperture. Now on the similar lines, we obtain the maximum effective aperture of lambda by 2 dipole. So on a similar basis, we'll look forward to obtain the equation for the maximum effective aperture of lambda by 2 dipole. So again, as we had discussed, dipole is nothing but it will be a long wire-like structure which will be having two wired elements bent in this form. So, and if I have to initiate or trigger this antenna, what we do is we apply a source to this. We apply a source to this. So this is what we do for a dipole. So now again, what we assume is for identifying the effective aperture, maximum effective aperture of lambda by 2 dipole. So what does this imply? This implies that the length of this dipole, what is under consideration, the length of this one is equal to lambda by 2. The overall length from this point to this point is lambda by 2. So that is what we are considering for lambda by 2 dipole. And again, we make use of the equation to obtain the maximum effective aperture, that is V square divided by 4p into radiation resistance. So now let us see what are these parameters, what is V, what is P, and what is the radiation resistance. So once we obtain those values, we substitute it in this equation and obtain what is maximum effective aperture. So again, when we apply source to this dipole, what happens is electrons move from one end to the other end, say during one of the positive half cycle, and during the negative half cycle, the electrons move in the reverse direction and get accumulated at the other end. So that is what we had seen in the at the starting sessions of the antenna. That is how antenna radiates. That discussion we had done. So with respect to that, what happens is there will be positive charge and a negative charge during one time, and there will be negative charge here and positive charge during the negative during the other point. So this will keep on continuing as long as you have applied the sinusoidal source over here. Now, when this happens, what happens is you'll see that from positive to negative, you will be having a electric field. So in that, when we consider the distribution of this electric field, the distribution of this electric field will be in this form. That is, it is in sinusoidal form. So if I start to measure from this point to this point, and if I consider it to be 0 to say 180 degrees, so in that case, what will happen is we'll obtain a sinusoidal representation for that electric field. So now, now what we do is we make use of the equation, that is electric field is given by V divided by the length or the distance parameter. So therefore this potential V can be obtained by multiplying electric field with the distance parameter. So if I utilize this equation, then I'll be able to obtain what is the potential across this dipole, which is lambda by 2 dipole. Now, as mentioned, if you what we assume is we assume that this dipole is placed along the y-axis such that half of its length is on the negative axis and half of its length is on the positive axis. So therefore, these values at the ends, it will be minus L by 2 and plus L by 2. But what is L equal to in this case? It is equal to lambda by 2. That is, the overall length of this antenna is lambda by 2. When we substitute it over here, what we get is this end will be minus lambda by 4 and this side will be plus lambda by 4. So this is with respect to these all values. And here we are considering that the maximum potential, maximum field is around E naught for the sinusoidal distribution. So based on this one, I can represent this electric field in this form, that is E naught cos omega t. Now what I do is I represent this parameter omega t in terms of the known parameters, that is say y and lambda, that is the operating wavelength. So that is, in order to do that, again what I do, I substitute omega. So as considered, the electric field distribution is given by sinusoidal E naught into cos omega t. Omega is 2 pi f and this t is remaining. So what is the frequency equal to? Frequency is given by velocity of the wave divided by the operating wavelength, v divided by lambda. Now after this, what is velocity into time factor give? Velocity into time factor gives you the distance which the wave travels. So in this case, the distance what is traveled is given along the y-axis, that is along with the y parameter. So what is the value of y will be decided by this v into t parameter. Therefore, what we do is we replace v into t with the y parameter. So similarly as we had done it for the previous case. So now once we are done with this, that is we replace v of t is equal to y, then we get E as E naught cos 2 pi by lambda v into t is replaced with y. So 2 pi by lambda into y. And this y is nothing but distance from the origin, that is at 0. That is distance from this point what you are considering. So that is being what is being displayed over here. This y is, say if I'm considering a point, if I want to identify the potential at this point, so if I observe it, its value, the field value will be given with this instantaneous value, and it is at a distance of y. So for this parameter I try to identify. Now what we are doing is we consider a elemental length dy, and over this elemental length, this is the electric field. We try to identify what is the elemental potential over the elemental length. So therefore what we do is we make use of the previous equation, that is we had seen that E is given by V by D. Therefore, if I have to identify the potential, I have to take the electric field and multiply it with the distance parameter. So when I apply that, the elemental potential is actually equal to multiplication of the field value into that elemental length. So this will be the elemental potential. Now you take, if I have to identify the overall potential, then what I do is I take integration on both sides. So when I take integration, integration of dV leads to the overall potential. It leads to the overall potential. So here integration of dV is nothing but it is equal to the overall potential, and the right hand side is integration of Ey into dy, Ey into dy. Now what are the limits of this one integration? If you just observe, it is minus L by 2 to plus L by 2, but it is known that the length of the dipole is lambda by 2. So if this is the case, you have to replace L with lambda by 2. Therefore, what happens is the limits are minus lambda by 4 to plus lambda by 4. So therefore, the integration limits will be from minus lambda by 4 to lambda by 4 Ey into dy. Now, what is Ey value? Ey value is given over here, that is this parameter. Ey is E naught into cos 2 pi by lambda into y. So this is the parameter. Now you simplify this integration and you know that E naught is constant, therefore you can take it outside. And what is integration of cos? Integration of cos is sine. So in this case, it is integration of something as cos ay, where a is 2 pi by lambda. So integration of this one will be sine of ay divided by a. Now what is a? A is 2 pi by lambda. So sine 2 pi by lambda into y divided by 2 pi by lambda. And what are the limits? Limits are lambda by 4 to minus lambda by 4. So now when you simplify this overall parameter, when you simplify this one, what you will be having is you will end up with potential value which is given by this case. So wherein the potential is E naught into lambda by pi. E naught into lambda by pi. So this is the potential value what we have obtained. In previous short dipole, since we had the condition L is much less than lambda, that is L by lambda is much less than 1, we had to simply, we use this to our advantage to obtain the potential value. So now in this case, there is no requirement of any simplifications, as directly you have got the result in terms of this lambda parameter, that is E naught into lambda by pi. So this is the potential value. Now I got to know what is V value. So that is in this equation, that is AEM V square divided by 4P RR. So I got to know what is V value. Now what is the uh, power density? So again, as we had discussed in the previous session, power density P is given as cross product of E and H. So when I simplify this, it will be magnitude of E into magnitude of H into sine theta and a vector which is normal to these two vectors. A vector which is normal to a unit vector which is normal to these two vectors. Now, as I know that theta value is 90 degrees between E and H, it is always 90 degrees. If E is in this direction, then H will be at a 90 degrees with respect to that. So when that is the case, this tends to 1. And if I just take the magnitude values, in this case, if I just represent this as E naught, magnitude of E is E naught and magnitude of H is H naught. So if you just observe here what we have, so if I happen to measure the magnitude, its magnitude value will be equal to magnitude of this parameter is always equal to E naught. So that is what we get. So we obtain equation for P in terms of just the magnitude parameters as E naught into H naught into actually the normalized vector. So this I'll just avoid for time being. So here we have P is equal to E naught into H naught. So this is what we have, that is power density equation. But we know that intrinsic impedance is given by E naught by H naught. And if we consider free space, this value is equal to 120 pi. That is, it is 377 ohms or 120 pi ohm value. So therefore, if we consider this and substitute for H naught over here. So what is H naught from this equation? So if we just observe, H naught is E20 divided, E naught divided by 120 pi. E naught divided by 120 pi. So this will be the value for H naught. So if I substitute it over here, what I get is I get P, which is equal to E naught square divided by 120 pi. So I got to know what is the potential value. Now here I got to know what is the power density value. Power density is E naught square divided by 120 pi. So now these are the parameters what I'll be substituting. And now for time being, you just remember that radiation resistance of lambda by 2 dipole is 73 ohms. Now if you want to know this parameter, right? So I'll just show you. So we can see that radiation resistance for the short dipole, sometimes also known as the Hertzian dipole. So it is obtained with the help of these parameters. That is the Poynting vector, E and H parameters. From this you start off and then you identify what is its equation. So, and using intrinsic impedance representation, you simplify the entire equation, and what you obtain is, once you simplify this, you will be obtaining radiation resistance for short dipole, which is 80 pi square into L square divided by lambda square. So this you had considered for short dipole. Similarly, for lambda by 2 dipole also you have the derivation in which you will be having the value which is given over here, and that is for lambda by 2 dipole. So here we have the radiation resistance. Again, what you do is you have to consider the Poynting vector, then the intrinsic impedance, then you have to equate the power radiated. So with respect to this value, and when you simplify this, right, you will be ending after the assumptions, you will be ending with the value of R naught nearly equal to 72.3 ohms or 73 ohms as we mentioned. So you will be now for time being, what we do is we consider the radiation resistance of lambda by 2 dipole as 73 ohms. So now we have got all the three values, that is the potential value in this equation. Then we saw what is P. P is equal to E naught square divided by 120 pi, and radiation resistance is 73 ohms for lambda by 2 dipole. So when we have these equations, we substitute it in this parameter to obtain the maximum effective aperture. So when we substitute this maximum effective aperture, we end up with maximum effective aperture equal to 0.13 lambda square. So yesterday we had seen that for short dipole, it is 0.119 lambda square, and for lambda by 2 dipole, it is 0.13 lambda square. So this is the maximum effective aperture of the dipole, which is of the length lambda by 2. So now in continuation with this, we look into the Frisch transmission equation, that is radio communication link. Frisch transmission equation or radio communication link. Now, what does this Frisch transmission equation basically specify? It basically gives the relation between the transmitted power and the received power. Frisch transmission formula or radio communication link gives us the relation between the transmitted power and the received power. So basically, it gives you the information pertaining to power transfer ratio. It gives you the information pertaining to power transfer ratio. So what is this actually, the ratio? It is the ratio of received power to the transmitted power. So now let us see what are the parameters we have to consider when we are looking for this communication link or the Frisch transmission equation. So whenever we are considering this, the communication system will consist of a transmitting side and a receiving side, which we call as the transmitter and the receiver. So when we have the transmitter and the receiver, what comes into play is the transmitting antenna and the receiving antenna. So whatever power is being radiated by this transmitting antenna has to be accepted or intercepted by this receiving antenna and then delivered to the receiver load. So and then you perform the operation what is required. So now in this case, if PT is the power which is being transmitted from the transmitter end, and PR is the received power at the receiving end, then what is the relation between PR and PT? That is what we have to check in Frisch transmission equation or the communication link. So in this case, we need to consider few parameters when we are considering the antenna. We came across so many aspects like directivity, gain, then we had seen radiation pattern. So all these aspects come into play. Now we are assuming, say, some ideal conditions, and we just look out what what will be the relation between PR and PT, that is received and transmitted powers respectively. So when we are considering this, at the transmitter side, the antenna parameters, what we need to look out is its effective aperture and effective aperture of the transmitting antenna. Then what is the power which is being transmitted from the transmitter section or the transmitting antenna? And we need to consider the gain of this antenna, the gain of the antenna. So these parameters are given by AET, PT, and GT respectively at the transmitting end. So similarly, if we consider that there is an antenna which is at a distance of R from this transmitting antenna, so we are considering the distance to be R between the transmitting and the receiving antenna. So if this is the case and this antenna has the parameters, that is the AER is the effective aperture of the receiving antenna, then PR is the received power, and this side we can consider the gain and other parameters, but these are the important parameters when we are dealing with the Frisch transmission equation. So now let us see what does this these parameters lead to. So now the first parameter what we have to look out is in this derivation is we make some assumptions, and then we go ahead. We consider at few points, we consider that the transmitting and the receiving antenna are isotropic in nature, so that some simplifications or assumptions can be done over here. So that we'll just consider. So now we can see that there is a receiving antenna at a distance r, and this receiving antenna has to receive a power which has been transmitted from this transmitting antenna, and this power, what is being transmitted is pt. What is being transmitted is pt. Therefore the power density, so at a distance r, so at a distance r, if I happen to measure the power density, that power density value will be given by the pointing vector at a distance r from the transmitting antenna, at a distance r from the transmitting antenna. So this is the pointing vector or the power density at a distance of r from the transmitting antenna. So by definition, what is power density? Power density is power flow per unit area, power which is flowing through per unit area. So at a distance r, you consider a unit area. So that unit area, when you consider, it will be nothing but its area will be the area of the sphere, which is 4 pi r square. And this we had seen in the previous power theorem relation. So when we consider this, the pointing vector or power density at a distance r is given by power which is being transmitted by this antenna divided by the area, which is 4 pi r square. So it is from the power theorem what we are looking after. So pt divided by 4 pi r square, where r is the distance between the transmitting and the receiving antenna. Now, if this antenna, what we are considering, has a gain of gt, that is, this transmitting antenna has a gain of gt, then what happens is this gain of this antenna will affect the power density at a distance r. It will affect the power density at the distance r. So therefore what happens is this factor needs to multiplied with this pointing vector. It has to be multiplied with this value in order to identify the actual value of SR. So that is what is being done here. Therefore, the power density at a distance r, which is denoted as SR, will be equal to PT divided by 4 pi r square into the gain of the transmitting antenna. Now, what happens is, now you are receiving this much power density at this antenna. But we saw that what is the effective aperture specify. Effective aperture is actually gives you the information pertaining to what is the effective power which is being delivered to the load. So therefore, when you are receiving a power of this value, in that some amount is lost in the form of loss and some amount in the form of scattering and other stuffs. So but only a certain amount of power will be delivered to the load, so that will be accommodated with the help of the effective aperture of the receiving antenna. So how do I consider the effective aperture of the receiving antenna in this case? So in this case, when I multiply the power density with the effective aperture of the receiving antenna. So this is the power density at a distance r. So this is telling us that this is the amount of power which is available at this point. That is, this is the power density available at this point. And for this antenna, it is giving you the information that this is the available power. Out of this available power, only certain amount will be utilized, that is effective, so which is basically given by the effective aperture. So therefore the received power by the antenna, that is the receiving antenna, which is at a distance r from the transmitting antenna, is given by PR, which is equal to the power density at the distance r from the transmitting antenna into the effective aperture of the receiving antenna. So here what we have SR equal to, it is PT into GT divided by 4 pi r square. So this is Pt into Gt divided by 4 pi r square. This one, when we multiply it with effective aperture, I get the overall power that has been received by the receiving antenna. Now, what we do is we try to obtain what is GT in terms of the effective aperture of the transmitting antenna. Now, under this case, what we do is we consider that directivity of this antenna is equal to GT. That is, directivity is equal to GT. So in indirectly, what we are doing is we are assuming that this is an isotropic antenna. This is an isotrope. We are just making an assumption. So if we assume that this transmitting antenna is isotropic, then for this the gain will be equivalent to the directivity. And as we had seen in one of the equation, that how directivity is related to the effective aperture of this antenna, it is given by 4 pi by omega a. But what was omega a related to? We had seen a relation that omega and effective aperture relation is equivalent to, that is product of omega a and effective aperture is equal to lambda square. We had seen this equation, that is lambda square is equal to omega a into effective aperture into effective aperture. So when we simplify this equation, what we had obtained, that is, in our case, we apply that equation over here, which will be given by 4 pi into effective aperture of the transmitting antenna divided by lambda square. Effective aperture of the transmitting antenna divided by lambda square. So therefore, this is what we have obtained here. So assuming that the gain is equal to the directivity, and directivity we had seen that it is given by 4 pi into effective aperture divided by lambda square. So what is the effective aperture of the transmitting antenna? It is AET. So therefore we substitute that, we obtain 4 pi into AET divided by lambda square. So now what we do is we substitute this equation in equation 3. So when we substitute this equation, what solution we get is, once we simplify this, this is the equation what we will be obtaining. So it gives PR is equal to PT into effective aperture of the transmitting antenna into effective aperture of the receiving antenna divided by R square into lambda square. So now if I happen to obtain the ratio of the received power to the transmitted power, this is the equation what we'll be obtaining. The ratio of received power to the transmitted power is given with the product of AET into AER divided by R square into lambda square. So this is termed as Frisch transmission formula. This is termed as Frisch transmission formula, or sometimes communication link formula. So here, what is PR? PR is the received power which is being received by the receiving antenna, which is placed at a distance of R from the transmitting antenna. That is what we have seen in this diagram. PT is the transmitted power which is being transmitted by the transmitting antenna, and AET and AER are the effective aperture of the transmitting and receiving antennas respectively. R is the distance between the transmitting and the receiving antennas, and lambda is the operating wavelength. So if you make an observation, say either this equation or this equation, if you just see, the received power is inversely proportional to the square of the distance, and it is inversely proportional to the square of the wavelength. So if you have higher frequency, wavelength is lesser. So due to which what happens is received power can be increased. That is, indirectly, if you increase the frequency, you can increase the received power. And apart from that, if you just make other observation, if you increase the distance between the communicating antennas, that is the transmitting and the receiving antennas, the received power at the receiving end will be reduced by the square of the distance between them. So these are the aspects which basically control what amount of power will be received. So this is based on one assumption what we did. We assume that it is isotropic in nature. Because of that, directivity is equal to gain what we are considering. We are considering that system is 100% efficient. So indirectly, we are just considering that parameter. That is, under isotropic condition, we are assuming that system is 100% efficient. So we are considering, if you remember, we had observed that G is equal to K into D. So when K is equal to 1, that is system is 100% efficient. So under that condition, what we have, G equal to D. And isotropic antenna is the one which has 100% efficiency. So it is based on that that condition, what or assumption we are identifying the relation. So this is the Frisch transmission formula. Now let us solve one problem related to Frisch transmission equation, that is using this equation. So here we can see that a radio link has a 15-watt transmitter connected to the antenna of 2.5 meter square effective aperture, and it is operating at what? It is operating at 5 gigahertz. The receiving antenna has an effective aperture of 0.5 meter square, and it is located at 15 kilometer line of sight from the transmitting antenna. Assuming lossless matched antennas, find the power which is delivered to the load. So if you observe here, what are the parameters he has given? So here another one thing to note down is the unit of effective aperture or aperture is meter square. Effective aperture is meter square. So in one of the classes, in one of the sessions, we had seen that for aperture kind of antennas, it is equal to the mouth area. If you remember, it is equal to the mouth area. We had observed this. If D is the diameter of this, then the physical aperture, or in general aperture, is given by pi d square by 4. So this is giving you the area, and the unit of area is nothing but meter square. So therefore, effective aperture or any aperture parameters what you're considering, they are also given in meter square. And for linear antennas, you had seen that if L is the length and D is the diameter of this wire, then its effective, then its physical aperture is given by L into D. So which is again in meter square. So therefore, effective aperture's SI unit is meter square. So now let us see what are the parameters here specified in the problem. So here a radio link has a 15-watt transmitter. So 15 watt is the transmitted power, which is PT, connected to an antenna of 2.5 meter square effective aperture. So this effective aperture is of the transmitting antenna, which is AET. And it is operating at what? It is operating at 5 gigahertz. Therefore, frequency is given as 5 gigahertz. So if I have to identify lambda, you use C divided by F, where C is the speed of light in free space. That is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters per second. And the receiving antenna has an effective aperture of 0.5 meter square. So this is effective aperture of the receiver, and it is located at what point? It is located at a distance of 15 kilometer. So therefore, in this case, the distance is 15 kilometer. Now we need to identify what is the received power at the receiving antenna under this ideal conditions. So that is, what is the power which is being delivered to the load, which is nothing but the power which is received. So from Frisch transmission equation, we know that PR by PT is given by AET into AR divided by R square into lambda square. So all the parameters are available: AET, AER, R square and lambda square. All the parameters are available. So from this parameter, you can identify what is the lambda value. Lambda value for this one turns around 0.06 meter. It turns around 0.06 meter. And remember, giga is 10 raised to 9. Giga implies 10 raised to 9. So when you estimate lambda, you get around 0.03. Therefore, you substitute all the values over here. When you substitute all the values, see that you replace the appropriate units over there. So here it is given as 15 kilometers. So it will be 15 into 10 raised to 3, which will be in meters. Effective aperture are also in meters. So see that all the units are proper. So here you have 15 watt, that is PT is 15 watt. This is 2.5 meter square. This is 0.5 meter square. And this one is 15 kilometer. Therefore, it is 15 into 10 raised to 3 meters. It's square, and you have 0.006 meters. So this is 0.006 meter square. So when you simplify this, you get a value of 23 microwatt. 23 microwatt. So you can see that you are transmitting a power of 15 watt at a distance of 15 kilometer. You are just receiving 23 microwatt. That too under the assumption that there are no losses happening. So if there are losses happening, this value will be still going down. So this is with respect to Frisch transmission formula and the problem what we have seen. Now we come to the last part of this module, that is antenna field zones. Antenna field zones. Now, generally, when we consider an antenna, right, we see that radiation is being emitted, and if I measure the values around the antenna, I'll be getting the radiation parameters. That is what power is being radiated at a given distance. So that distance value, what I am considering, that is the R value. Suppose in this case, in the Frisch equation, so here what I'm doing is at a distance of R, I'm trying to estimate the power. So if I imagine that this transmitting antenna is within a sphere, and this is forming the center of the sphere. If this is forming the center of the sphere and the distance is R, or the radius of the sphere is R. So based on this R value, right, I I can specify whether the measurements are done in which zone, in which zone. So based on that itself, I have to classify the antenna field zones. So basically, I have two zones defined for an antenna. That is, one zone is called as near field zone, and the other one is termed as far field zone. Sometimes the alternate name which is being utilized is, for near field, you specify the zone to be Fresnel zone. You specify the zone to be Fresnel zone. And for far field, you specify the zone to be Fraunhofer zone. So these are the alternate names which are given to these. So this is the Fresnel zone, and this is the Fraunhofer zone. The alternate names are termed as near field and far field. Now, when do I call the field measurements to be falling under near field, and when do I call the measurements to be falling under the far field? So here I need to consider one parameter. That parameter is this case. So I see what is the value of R. Value of R is measured with the help of 2L square by lambda. I need to compare the value of R, that is at what point you are measuring. R is the point at which you are measuring the radiation. So suppose if I consider here, and the R value is somewhere here. So around this one, I try to measure all the values. So for this case, in order to identify whether this value falls within the near field or falls in the far field, will tell you, will give you the information. That is, it is obtained with this parameter. That is 2 times L square divided by lambda. Now, what are these parameters? In this case, L is again related to the dimension of the antenna. So in this case, we consider the larger dimension. So in this case, it will be the length of the antenna what we are considering. L is the length of the antenna and lambda is the operating wavelength of this antenna. So at what wavelength the antenna is being operated. So in this problem, we saw that it is operating at 5 gigahertz and we saw that lambda value is around 0.06 meter. So this is the operating wavelength of this transmitting antenna, which is transmitting a power of 15 watt. That is what we observed. And it is specified that R is 15 kilometers. Whether this point lies within the near field or lies within the, within the far field. So how do I identify? So I got to know that R value is 15. R value is 15, lowercase r or capital R. So this is the point where you are measuring it. You know what is the operating wavelength. And I want another parameter, say the length of the antenna. Say if it is a lambda pi, if it is say 0.005 times lambda, 0.00, sorry, a 0.05 lambda. If this is the length of the antenna, then I have to estimate few parameters over there. So what do I estimate? I estimate 2 L square by lambda. So if I happen to measure 2 into L square, I consider it as 0.05 square into lambda, that is Li replaced with 0.05 lambda. And in this case, I have lambda over here. So when I estimate this parameter, right? When I estimate this entire parameter, I'll get a value. I'll get one certain value. So based on that value, I can specify whether this point is under near field or far field. So under what condition I specify it to be near field. So if the point what I am considering for the measurement, if this point is less than 2 times L square by lambda, if this is the case what we have, so if that 15 kilometer what I am specifying, if it is less than this value, then the field, then the point is within the near field. Then the point is within the near field. But if it is greater than equal to 2 times L square by lambda, that is 15 kilometers is greater than this value what we have estimated. So then we consider that the point under consideration or the radiation what is measured is actually in the far field. So here if you just observe, if it is less than 2 L square by lambda square, the point falls in the near field zone or the Fresnel zone. And if R is greater than equal to 2 times L square by lambda, then the point falls in the far field region or Fraunhofer zone or region. So these are the two things. Now here what happens is the critical conditions what we have is, one we can have less than and one we can have greater than. But if you have equal to, we call it as Fresnel Fraunhofer region. So if say for example, if this circle, just for example, if this circle is actually equal to, R is equal to 2 L square by lambda square. So this part is actually termed as Fresnel Fraunhofer boundary. It is termed as Fresnel Fraunhofer boundary. So within this boundary you have near field and outside this boundary you have the far field. So this is with respect to the antenna field zones. This is with respect to the antenna field zones. So this is all from this module. uh, Thank you.